so I only have 4 bets, and that's because, in a rarity for me, I went up top this week, and I'm going with Scottie Scheffler. I mean, we're looking at 9 straight top 5. You have 19 straight top 12s. I mean, that's crazy stuff. It doesn't have the wins as much as we would like to see, but, nowadays, on the PGA Tour, it's hard to win golf tournaments. Obviously, there's so much talent. As long as you just have to be there, right? A couple putts here, a couple putts there. We're looking at a guy who could have 5 wins instead of, the 2 that he has. But ultimately, the betting market does have Rory as a slight favorite over him outright. But if you switch over to the full tournament head-to-head, I have Scotty as a little bit of a favorite. I'm looking at minus 120 there to Rory's even. So in a more efficient market, they do make Scotty a little bit more of a favorite. And I'm gonna roll with that. This is a guy who can do it all. You're gonna have to do it all. You're not gonna hit every green. There's a lot of long irons into these greens. But right now, Scotty is having one of the best iron seasons on record since obviously Morikawa when he was in his prime. When he was winning golf tournaments, and then we have to go all the way back to Tiger Woods to find a comparison to what Scotty is doing this year. The putting is, a little iffy with Scotty, but look, British Open golf courses, they're not known for their difficult greens. These are usually slow because if it does get windy, you have to have the greens slow, and they're not overly undulated, right? So, a putter, you don't necessarily have to have, the best putting skills to be able to putt these, and that's really where Scotty has let us down this year. I love him in this golf tournament. I know Rory's coming off of a win, coming off of a second at the U.S. Open, so he's got a lot of hype. Obviously, he's won here before. But I think that's just giving us a price on Scotty that I can't turn down.
This might be wrong. I would like to register my opinion in the market.
Well, you had teased earlier in the show that you have a hot take on the Lakers win total, right? 48.5, I think was their win total, something like that. So curious to hear that because I don't know if I have a really strong opinion. That's a number that stood out to me as well. The win total I talked about last week, and we did a little bit on it last week. But yeah, the one that stood out is the Spurs under their number, which is 30.5. Like a fun way. So let's say you're not so much into math, because like math's kind of boring and you just like to watch sports, whatever. A fun way to think about whether you want to bet a win total or not is, okay, in the final 3 minutes of an NBA regular season game, when traditionally like a lot of games are going to be decided, offense slows down, people actually start playing defense for the first time in 45 minutes. And okay, like who are the primary and secondary players that are going to execute the offense of the team that you want to bet on? And based on who those players are and how good they fit into the other pairings that you see around the league, or even the primary option, one superstar player, in some situations, how much do you want that versus what everybody else is doing? And so like, even if you applied this to last year, like the teams that outperformed expectation the most were Oklahoma City and Sacramento. And why was that the case? Okay, because a year ago, at the start, if we had this conversation July 18th last year, we would have said like SGA in the final 3 minutes of a game, like he looks like a promising player, but I don't, they probably shouldn't be that rated. Well, it turns out he's actually one of the best 10 players in the league. And because that happened, they went over a lot. Final 3 minutes of a game, he was amazing. One of the best 10 players in the league. Kings went over. Why was that? Final 5 minutes of the game, final 3 minutes of the game, they literally had the player who won Clutch Player of the Year. He played for them, De'Aaron Fox, and they had Sabonis. And so like these were players who ended up in sort of, I think it was year 7-ish for both of them, year 8, ended up having their best seasons. So like you look at even the teams that outperform expectations, like why was that? Okay, well their best player or their co-best players like took a leap forward and did really awesome. When I look at the Spurs, I don't think they have a player like that who's going to be, SGA or Sabonis or De'Aaron Fox or anybody like that. And they drafted Victor Wembanyama first overall, and he's, probably going to be a really impactful rookie. Probably going to be really good defensively, at least at first. Maybe scores a little bit too. Like could end up being a legendary player, but like in his rookie year, might end up being a negative on-court player, or at least like not a big positive, because rookies, it's really, really, really tough, right? I mean, told you he doesn't really know how to play yet, American basketball. That's going to be pretty tough. Okay, so the final 3 minutes of a game, it's basically going to be like, here's Keldon Johnson. Like that's what we're doing. That's it. And here's like Devin Vassell if he's not hurt and he takes another step forward. And these are like fine players. They're both actually pretty good. I thought about betting both of them for most improved last year. They just played for a team that was going to be dreadful and win 10 games. And so I didn't bet them, but like that's what the final 3 minutes. So now think about like around the league, final 3 minutes of a game. Denver's going to say, we have Nikola Jokic. And like, Philadelphia's going to say, we have Joel Embiid. And Golden State's going to say, we have Steph Curry. And San Antonio's going to say, we have Keldon Johnson. And their number is 30.5. To me, that pairing, that end of game offense, Popovich is incredible, obviously, but like that Doesn't matter, I think, in this case. I think they're going to be really, really bad again, and that's okay. And that's kind of, it's not the point, I guess. You draft Wembanyama, like, be in the lottery one more time. Like, you're trying to win the title in 2028. Like, that's when you're trying to win the title. So who cares? Get the number one pick again. Who cares? Certainly not them. And so yeah, that number just, I have them like mid 20s, like among the worst teams in the league, especially in the West where everyone's really good. So under 30.5 on them.
The best part about that.
I think Sweden's getting overlooked. Like, this is a Swedish team that was in the European semifinal last year. They lost to England at Wembley, so a tough spot for them. This is a team that was in the finals of the Olympics. This is a team that went to the semis at the last World Cup. So, like, they've been deep in a lot of international tournaments. They have won more games than any other team in the history of women's soccer without winning the World Cup. So that's how close they've been time and time again. And I almost think they're getting overlooked here because they don't really have anything exciting going on. There's been a lot of off-the-field stuff going on with France and with Spain leading into this World Cup. Of course, the U.S. getting a lot of attention. England is the hot team right now because they've won. They have one loss in 31 matches under their new manager. They won the Euros last summer, but England's got a lot of injuries. They lost their best striker. They lost their best defender. So England's got some problems. I think Sweden, the way the draw breaks for them, if they win the group, they're going to probably play the Dutch in the round of 16. I think they have a real shot to beat them. They'll be favored in that match and then could play Spain. So you can find Sweden plus 250 to make the semis out there and even a 20-1 long shot. Like, they've been the team that's always been knocking on the door but has never been able to break the door down. They have Rolfo, the star winger from Barcelona, who's the best club women's team in the world. She had a dynamic season. So they're going to be fully loaded and just as talented as these top teams. Like I said, I really don't think there's a huge gap at the top. Once you get into a tournament knockout stage setting, there really are tiny margins and a lot of variance that decides these kind of events when it's 1-1 or going to penalties and whatnot. So I think Sweden's got a decent path. And if you're looking in terms of like the group stage, I wouldn't count out Portugal at 8-1 to advance from the United States' group. I'm a little bit down on the Dutch. They lost Viv Miedema, who was their star striker. She scored twice against the U.S. in the Olympics 2 years ago. She tore ACL. She's a star for Arsenal. She's out, and I think their defense is a little bit vulnerable. They don't have the firepower like they usually do. So the Dutch could be weak. Maybe Portugal, first time in the World Cup, 8-1 to advance, a decent long shot. They have a lot of continuity within their team. The question is, do they have enough talent? It's debatable, but at 8-1, that's a worthy shot to potentially advance out of this group. It is going to be a pretty chalky group stage. Ultimately, though, all the new teams coming in, there's 8 new teams added to the tournament, 8 teams making their debuts. There's a few like Vietnam, Panama, Haiti, kind of just happy to be here teams that really kind of make it hard to find these uber long shots. Morocco, the women's team, they brought in a manager with a lot of pedigree, somebody who coached the best women's team in the world for multiple years. But again, I'm not quite sure the talent's there. But if you wanted to take a flyer, you can find as high as 50-1 on them to qualify. They're probably like the best Hail Mary on the board.
Anthony, we've only got like 15 seconds left here, so just really quick on the answer, please. But want to do Golden Boot, where Alex Morgan and Sophia Smith, 2 Americans, are the favorites, plus 500 and plus 550, respectively. Any bets for you on Golden Boot to lead the tournament in goals here in like 10 to 15 seconds?
Yeah, Sam Kerr, best striker in the world, 12-1 to win at some books. Australian, awesome. And then 14-1, Alexandra Popp, the Germans. They have a very favorable draw to score a lot of goals.